Hello there, Advanced Math. Welcome back. I'm not going to give you a new adding strategy today. I just want to go over something that will help you be less likely to make a mistake when you do add. So we're going to talk about estimating before you add with negative numbers today. So please make this the title of your next free page. And after you have done so, close it up and give me your full concentration until we get to the we do. Alright, so real quick, our adding strategies with negative numbers that we learned. The two I showed you, one was using symbols or counters, so like -2 plus 4, and then make some zeros, and 2 left over. Or, we also did the number line with the start, move, end technique. So start back at -2, move 4 in the positive direction, 1, 2, 3, 4, and wherever you end up is the answer. 2. So that's the strategy we learned so far. So when the numbers get larger, we've pretty much dealt with fairly small numbers. When I get to a problem like this, I'm not going to go over how to calculate these. But what I want to do is talk about, before you try to figure out the answer, have a good estimate in your head first. And I kind of estimate, when I deal with positive and negative numbers, I like to do a two-step estimate. So one is I try to figure out, is it going to be positive or is it going to be negative? And then two, then I find like a reasonable or a kind of a close estimate. So let me show you how I do that. So first here, depending on which strategy you want to think about in your head, I could either think this is going to be 23 minus signs and this is going to be 45 minus signs. And when I put those together, it's just going to be a lot of minus signs, is what I'm first thinking. So it's going to be a negative number that's past both of these. I'm going to combine negatives and just get more negatives. So the first part of my estimate is I'm going to say, well, I'm pretty sure that's going to be I am very sure that that's going to be a negative answer. So I do that first. Just figure out, is that going to be positive or negative? If you're a number line fan, you think I'm going to start at -23 and I'm going to move in the negative direction. I'm going to go that way. So I'm just going to end up even more negative than before. So I know it's going to be a negative answer. And then from there, I'm going to get an estimate. I'm going to kind of get close and say, okay, well, I'm adding up a bunch of negative signs. So I'm going to get a lot of negatives. Maybe an easy couple of numbers to get a close estimate would be like 25 and 45. 45, 55, 65, 70. So when I get all done, I'm going to be somewhere around -70. And so that way, if I think through that quickly, then, when I calculate my answer, if I'm nowhere close to that, I can know that I probably made a mistake. So it just gets me ready before I add so that I can kind of have a nice check at the end and see if I'm right. Let me do one more. So how about this one? -16 plus 52. So again, two steps I want to follow here. Is it positive or negative? And then estimate. So again, depending on which strategy you like better, here I'm going to be adding 16 negatives, if I were to just, I don't want to write them all, and 52 positives. And so I'm going to make, if you think about all this being there, I'm going to make 16 zeros. These 16 negatives with 16 of these positives. And so I'm going to have lots of positives left over. So my answer is going to be positive. Or if you're a number liner, you can think, okay, well, I'm going to start at -16 and I'm going to move 52 this way. I'm going to move way that way. And I'm going to end up in the positive area when I'm done. So there we go. So that is close. And then let's talk about an estimate. So maybe I'll estimate, with rounder numbers, like maybe something like that. That'll be pretty close to my answer. And then when I think about this, 15 negatives are going to cancel out 15 positives, right? So all of these will take out 15 positives to make 15 zeros, and the rest of these will be left, which is what, about 35, I think is a good estimate. Or if you prefer the number line strategy, then a quick way to get my estimate is to think, okay, so I'm going to start at negative 15 for my estimate, and I'm going to go 50, right? So I would have to go 15 to get here, to get to 0, and then it would take another 35. You know, there's my 50 when I'm adding. So I'm going to be somewhere around positive 35 when I'm done. So that's just a good estimate. Whether you like this strategy better or this strategy better, it just lets you get kind of close. All right, let's do a couple together. Open your math notebook, and let's do this one first. 49 plus negative 71. So the first thing we're going to ask ourselves is positive or negative. And then second, we're going to try to get an estimate. All right, so again, you can use either the symbol strategy, in which I would do 49 positives and 71 negatives. And you can think, if you can visualize all that in your head, great. Or you can think of the number line strategy and say, all right, I'm going to start at 49, and I'm going to go 71 in this direction. So I'm going to end up over there. I'm going to end up somewhere in the negatives. Same thing, there's more negatives than positives. So, 49 of these will cancel out 49 of these with zeros. And I'll be left with whatever that is when I'm all done. So that gets me my negative estimate. And then, so for an estimate, excuse me, I can't shake this cough. A good estimate might be to think of 50 plus negative 70. That'll get me pretty close. And so if you want to think about that with the number line, I'm starting at 50, and I'm trying to move 70 to the left. So I'm going to go 50 to get to 0, which leaves me like another 20 to get to my answer. So my answer is going to be around negative 20, somewhere close to negative 20. If you like the other strategy better, if you want to think about 50 positives and 70 negatives, 50 positives will cancel out 50 of the negatives with zeros, and I'll be left with 20 negatives. So either way of those is easier for you to think about to get a good estimate is okay with me. All right. Let's do one more. Right here. Negative 18 plus negative 101. So remember, step 1, positive or negative. Step 2, estimate. So first thing, positive or negative. If you think on the number line, we're going to start at negative 18, and we're going to move way in the negative direction. Or I'm going to put 18 negatives with 101 negatives, and I'm just going to have a whole lot of negatives, a bunch of negatives. So I'm going to have a negative answer. For an estimate, I might estimate that to be close to negative 20 plus negative 100. And if I want to do that, I can think about starting at negative 20 and moving 100 to the left. So I would end up about 120 spots over there. Or if I put 20 negatives with 100 negatives, I'm going to end up with 120 negatives. So either way, I get an estimate of roughly negative 120. And so that way, after I do everything, I know kind of close to where I should be when I'm all done. All right. So hopefully that makes some sense to you. If not, please go back and watch some of these examples again. But if you think you have a pretty good handle on making an estimate before you add and subtract, then you're all set. See you tomorrow.